Hoy estamos en el corazón de Ginebra, en Suiza, donde nos abren las puertas de la boutique de Vacheron Constantin, probablemente la más emblemática que tiene la marca en todo el mundo. No podía ser en otro lugar. Aquí en esta ciudad, paraíso para los amantes de la relojería, nació Vacheron hace ya 270 años. Durante esta visita nos explicarán su historia, conoceremos sus colecciones más icónicas y veremos piezas realmente excepcionales. Como podéis ver, la boutique está absolutamente a la altura de la marca, un auténtico placer visual, con cada detalle cuidado al milímetro. Y desde el primer momento lo que más destaca es la atención y el trato personalizado que ofrecen. Vacheron es una de mis marcas favoritas. Hace casi 2 años visité su boutique de Madrid, mucho más pequeña y con pocas piezas, y siempre me quedo pendiente grabar ahí algún día. Además, hace un tiempo hice un vídeo contando la historia de la marca, así que para mí es un verdadero honor poder estar hoy en una de sus boutiques más importantes. Dicho esto, empezamos la visita.
You may or may not know, Vacheron Constantin is the oldest watchmaking manufacturer that never closed its doors, regardless of wars, watchmaking crisis, economical crisis. And this year we are celebrating 270 years of existence. At the beginning, the first 3 generations were only Vacherons. Constantin part of the brand came into play as of 1819. So François Constantin was a good friend of Jacques Barthélemy Vacheron, who was the 3rd generation, so who was the grandson of Jean-Marc Vacheron. And how it typically is in watchmaking, you typically have 2 people. One of them is the creative, is the watchmaking part, and then the other person is the businessman, right? And this was exactly the case as well with Vacheron Constantin. So the Vacherons were the watchmakers, and then François Constantin, when he joined in 1819, his principal goal was to sell the watches, right? So he traveled about 30 years. He spent, on horse carriages at the time, so obviously travels were slow and long. And in one of his letters, he phrased or wrote a sentence which we still today use as an inspiration. Kind of serves like, if you will, the motto of Vacheron Constantin, which is do better if possible, which is always possible. We have our main manufacturer in Plain-les-Ouates, which is about 5 kilometers away from where we are right now in the boutique. And we have another production site in the Vallée de Joux, which your listeners may or may not know about, which is where Audemars Piguet and Jaeger-LeCoultre and other very important brands are based. Our heritage department is something very important for the Maison. In our private collection, we have about 1,500 timepieces. The very first ones date back to the second half of the 18th century. One of them is signed by the son of our founder. It's a pocket watch, because at the time, of course, it was pocket watches. Obviously, we started, right? I mean, wristwatches only became more popular as of the 1930s when they took over in popularity, right? We have about 400 linear meters of archives, papers of every timepiece ever made at the manufacturer. So we can restore any piece that ever left the manufacturer, back to its original state. So the Maltese cross was chosen as a logo in 1880, and the inspiration was a component, the caliber actually. So nothing to do with the Maltese cross from Malta. We do share some values, yes, but the inspiration is really a component, which you can actually see up there on the wall. So see, it actually had 6 parts, the component, which then evolved into the Maltese cross. So we are historically very classic brand, classic maison. Our most important 2 classic collections are the Patrimony and the Traditionnel. And then of course, what today probably we are best known for is our overseas collection, which represents our sport chic style, which a lot of people today are looking for, right? We're talking about steel watches, integrated bracelets. The reason why people appreciate a lot the overseas collection, amongst other reasons, is the fact that you can actually change the bracelets yourself. We were the first ones to introduce the interchangeable bracelet system back in 2016 with the 3rd generation of the overseas collection. Overseas represented by a grand complication featuring a tourbillon. What makes our tourbillons very special is the tourbillon cage, which is also inspired by the Maltese cross. I think it's one of the most beautiful tourbillons that are available in the market, I think. I'm biased, but it's true that if you compare it with other tourbillons, they're not as aesthetically pleasing as this one. And then the blue dial is what gets people hooked about the overseas collection. It's a lacquered blue dial. So this timepiece is 42.5 millimeter. And then, of course, we then open case back as well, as you can see. And so what makes it very highly appreciated is the fact that you can just like this remove,
So easy.
and then changes completely the character of the timepiece. This piece is from our Traditionnel collection. It's an anniversary edition timepiece with a new perpetual calendar caliber with a retrograde date, which you can see on the upper half of the dial. What it means is that the date is shown in a half arc that goes from 1 to 31, and at 31 the date hand will jump back in an instant to the number 1, so it's a different way of actually featuring the date, a very beautiful representation of the date. The timepiece also features a open face dial, gives a hint of a modern touch to an otherwise very classical timepiece, which also features an open case back. Every single component in the caliber is decorated in one way or another, either visible or not. So this timepiece is made in platinum, 10 times more rare than gold. It's very hard to work with, and this timepiece is limited to 370 pieces. Another anniversary edition timepiece from the Patrimony collection, which is also a very, very classical timepiece, 40mm in rose gold, featuring the special dial, yet again inspired by the Maltese cross, with an open case back.
370 pieces.
As well, limited, exactly. I'm not sure if you can see, but the sapphire is curved. The dial itself is curved as well, very discreetly. So part of our 270th anniversary, we launched the 222 this year in steel. So the 222 was the inspiration actually for the overseas, which not a lot of people know. I don't know if you know, but the reason why the 222 is called the 222 is because it was presented for the 222nd anniversary of Vacheron Constantin in 1977. And contrary to other sports watches of the decade, we only produced this timepiece during 7 years, but yes, only about 700 pieces total. The iconic 222 from the 70s, most recently relaunched in 2022 in yellow gold. The bracelet is almost like, I've heard some people compare it to snakeskin. Of course, the detail of the Maltese cross between 4 and 5. People who are lucky enough to wear it say that it's the most comfortable integrated bracelet to wear on the wrist. And then the piece evolved into other timepieces such as the Phidias and the 333, which were also sporty timepieces in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. And then it eventually inspired the birth or the creation of the Overseas, which then arrived in 1996, the first generation. So next year, the collection itself will be celebrating 30 years. So whoever is interested or following Vacheron Constantin is interested in Overseas should keep a close eye.
What's your main market?
So we are globally present since the end of the 19th century, like pretty much covered the entire globe by the end of the 19th century. We started, especially when François Constantin joined the Maison in 1819. Between that period and the following, 20, 30 years, we were already in all continents. And by the end of the 19th century, really pretty much everywhere in the world. China, historically, is a very, very important market for us, even today, of course. The United States is becoming very important, especially since COVID. Then, of course, Europe, historically. With that being said, we have significantly decreased our distribution network since COVID. So before COVID, we had over 400 points of sale, and today we have less than 170. And most of them are monobrand boutiques. We really would like to stay in direct contact with our clients and really build those relationships to provide the experience they deserve, because that's one of the most important things that distinguishes today Vacheron Constantin from a lot of other brands, is really the level and quality of service that we provide to our clients.
Y nada, espero que os haya gustado el vídeo. Quiero dar las gracias a todo el equipo de la boutique, así como al equipo de social media de Vacheron por hacer posible que pudiera grabar este vídeo. Si te gusta el mundo de los relojes, no olvides suscribirte. Nos vemos en el próximo vídeo. ¡Chao!